Without further ado, we'll continue. And as I mentioned earlier, we will have our regional perspectives first on the role of education in the blue economy. And to begin with, I'd like to introduce Mrs. Susanna Scott, whom, as I mentioned, is the representative from the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, and who manages the World Bank-supported and Global Environment Facility-funded Caribbean Regional Oceanscape project. I'll let her discuss a little bit more in depth about the OECS and the crop and the role of education, and think blue specifically in the crop. Thank you very much. And Susanna, please go ahead. I'll set up your PowerPoint in a second.
Okay, good afternoon all. Just to say, I'm very happy to be here. We got invited to this, and we struggled to find someone to come because our head of our Oceans Governance Unit was not available to come. But after discussions, it was decided, since I was actually managing the crop, that I would come and present on behalf of the OECS. I've been working with the OECS for quite some time. Recently came back to the OECS after a 4-year stint with the government of St. Lucia. Prior to that, I was with the OECS for 6 years, managing projects under climate change, and biodiversity and protected areas. So my background is actually in climate change, biodiversity, and oceans governance. As small island people, we have to have many hats. Okay. So just to give a little bit on the OECS experience, this works. I won't assume that everybody knows what the OECS is. It's the Organization of Eastern Caribbean States. It's an international intergovernmental organization, and our focus is on economic harmonization and integration within our member states, and also focuses on good governance in several different areas. We came into being on this June 18th, 1981. Some 30 years later, there was a revision to our treaty, Treaty of Basseterre, and it established us as an economic union. So we're currently an economic union. We may not compare to the EU that everybody's familiar with, but we are the OECS Economic Union. Oops, this is, okay. We have 10 members. Yes, Jorge, not 9, 10 members. A few years ago, we had our last, the most recent member that came into our flock was about 2 years ago. We have 7 full members, which are the original founders of the OECS. There's Antigua and Barbuda, there's the Commonwealth of Dominica, there's Grenada, St. Kitts and Nevis, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and Montserrat. These are the 7 founding members. And we also have 3 associate member states. That's Anguilla, the British Virgin Islands, and Martinique, which is the newcomer. And we're hoping to continue to expand. Just to touch a bit on our policy framework, our legal framework actually, the revised Treaty of Basseterre, it presents a number of areas that we coordinate and harmonize among our member states. And 2 of the areas I've pulled out are L and O under Article 4.2. And L speaks to education, and O speaks to matters relating to the sea and its resources. So you can see that our very foundation, which is our treaty, actually allows for that collaboration between education and matters relating to the sea. In terms of our programs are run, in terms of the education program, this is more or less guided by the education sector strategy. It's a strategy that extends from 2012 to 2021, and it notes that everyone is entitled to an education. Every single individual, every single citizen is entitled to an education. And it notices also that when it comes to being a facilitator, education is a facilitator of growth, economic growth, individual empowerment, and social cohesion. So without that, economic growth, without education, economic growth would not be optimal. In terms of the Caribbean blue economy, in 2012, a study showed that the economy was worth about $407 billion. This is a wider Caribbean, so it's larger than the OECS itself, which is just 10 islands in the Eastern Caribbean. This is 34 cities and territories and about 40 million people. The blue economy contributes to food security, facilitates trade, supports tourism, which is one of the mainstays of the region, and also oil and gas, among others, including fisheries. So it stands to reason, as small island states, that the ocean is actually ingrained in our DNA. We think the ocean, we breathe the ocean, we dream the ocean, and we've done so for time immemorial. And just to state that when we look at the small island developing states, our largest resource is our oceans. The figures here show that the ocean space is actually well over 100 times the land space of these countries. And just a little quote from our first Director General of the OECS in 1988 to show you how long we've been looking at the blue economy, even if it hadn't been coined the blue economy. Just a statement that was made in 1988 in an article. For the OECS member states, the sea and resources assumed a new importance as possibly the last frontier for resource exploitation. So we recognized it then, and this is still valid today. So since then, more recently, the OECS has developed Eastern Caribbean regional ocean policy with assistance from the Commonwealth. This is based on good practice and is actually one of the first of its kind in our region. What I have here is the actual vision that was pulled out from this policy, and it states that we expect that the policy will deliver a healthy and richly biodiverse Caribbean marine environment, sustainably managed in an integrated way to promote socioeconomic development and support the livelihoods and aspirations of current and, of course, our future generations. So this is what basically drives our Oceans Governance Program. This is what guides our actions. And just to note, it was developed between 2010 to 2012. It was adopted by our authority, which is the heads of government of the 10 countries, in June 2013. Alongside the ECROP, that is the policy itself, is a strategic and action plan. Within that strategic action plan, it notes that the care of the environment is a responsibility of everyone. However, when we look at the lack of education, that contributes to persons not being able to accept accept problems associated with or take ownership of problems associated with the oceans, as well as participate in identifying and implementing solutions. So one of the main areas, or one of the priority areas for action, is actually to support and promote public education on oceans. So it specifically focuses on oceans and education in this particular action. Oh, I'm not speaking. Oh, sorry. Okay, I'll just try to speak louder. I thought I was doing a good job at that. Okay. The blue economy. In terms of the blue economy in its latest concept form, in 2015, the CARICOM, which is the Caribbean Community and Common Market, and there are about 23 member states within this community, and 9 of our 10, with the exception of Martinique, 9 of the 10 OECS countries actually fall under the CARICOM umbrella as well. So in 2015, At an inaugural meeting of the CARICOM ministers and the G20 Development Working Group, the issue of the blue economy was raised. This was discussed, and it was realized that was really not enough information to inform policymakers. The meeting actually ended, and no one really at that time could really identify and define what the blue economy really meant. So there was a recommendation coming out of this meeting to have an analysis of what the blue economy was for the region and how the countries could really transition towards the blue economy. And the response was met by the World Bank, who produced a document called Toward a Blue Economy, a Promise for Sustainable Growth in the Caribbean. And this today serves as a guide for policymakers to plan a successful transition to the blue economy. Within this document, the World Bank document, there are a number of policy instrument designs. It speaks to best practices for national ocean governance policies, but it also speaks to policy instruments of delivery or delivery of policy instruments. And some of these measures that can be taken, and education and awareness is one of the primary ones that it speaks to as a means to delivering your policy actions. Out of the recommendation from the World Bank document, the analysis of the blue economy in the Caribbean, and consistent with the good practices that have been outlined in this document, a project called the Caribbean Regional Oceanscape was developed. And it is designed to meet the needs of both what was outlined in that document, but also what is outlined in our ECROP, our Eastern Caribbean Regional Ocean Policy, which of course is in sync with the World Bank document. This particular project is JEF funded, as Jorge mentioned earlier. It's $6.3 million. It's being implemented by the World Bank, and the time frame is that it started in October of 2017 and is due to conclude in 2021, and has a project development objective to strengthen capacity for ocean governance and coastal and marine geospatial planning. There are 5 countries that are participating from this. This project is open, of course, to projects that are to countries that are eligible for JEF funding, and 6 of our countries are eligible. However, 5 of them have chosen to participate in this project. But just to also mention that under our ECROP, that is the policy itself, within that framework, there is what we call an ocean governance team. And this oceans governance team is responsible for overseeing the oceans governance program and providing guidance to that, including the crop. The oceans governance team actually has a representative from each of our member states. So the 10 member states actually still provide guidance to this project, despite the fact that the beneficiaries, the direct beneficiaries, are the 5 member states. And the OECS, to note, is also working with other partners, such as the Commonwealth, to ensure that benefits under this project can also be received by our other member states. So specifically for this forum, under that particular project, we will be, well, maybe I should give a little background on it before. Apart from what's on the screen here, there are a number of deliverables that will be met by this project, including national oceans governance policies, which were mentioned in the ECROP, in the policy document itself, the strategic action plan as an action to be undertaken, which was also recommended by the World Bank document that I mentioned earlier. But we're also going to be doing coastal master plans and marine spatial plans. Marine spatial plans both at the national level and at the regional level. So these are some of the deliverables that the crop will be providing. But more specifically to education, the project is also looking to support the virtual educational efforts by producing a number of educational tools that will be relevant to the OECS countries and populating the Think Blue platform. Some of these are outlined on the screen here. For one, we have an original content product on the blue economy, and that is targeted at decision makers. And recall that I mentioned that when the ministers of finance met, there was this lack of understanding of what the blue economy meant. So this will contribute to answering some of their questions and educating them on what the blue economy could mean for their countries. Okay. There's also 5 e-books. These e-books are targeted more at middle-level managers, and so we'll have some technical content to them. And again, just to provide information that is very specific to the OECS for decision-making is the idea behind these e-books. There will be a number of webinars as well that will be developed for a number of different groups, for example, policymakers, middle-level managers, the youth, citizens at large, and more. And also a Blue Economy EduTech Learning course. The details of all of these, it's a little hard to say at this point in time as we seek consultancy services to develop these, and these will be developed in consultation with stakeholders. So it's a little, I'd be preempting the entire process if I was to go into any more detail on each product. So the Blue Economy EduTech Learning course, of course, and one EduTech primary school game. Primary school for us is from grade 3 to about grade 6. So these are the products that would be developed under the project and would help populate Think Blue. And just to conclude, I mean, by no means does the OECS look at the blue economy as a means to solve all our woes. But it is definitely the way to go in order to start to reduce poverty and try to sustain economic growth. Just to sum up, our policy structure, including our e-crop and our education strategy, and of course, definitely our revised Treaty of Basseterre, are all consistent with the 2030 development goals. More specifically, I've spoken to Goal 4 and Goal 14. Oh, I should say, sorry, that the Eastern Caribbean Regional Ocean Policy was established in 2013, which preceded the 2030 development goals. So under the crop, we will also be aligning the e-crop with the 2030 goals. Yeah. Thank you. Obrigado. That's the only word I know.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much for the presentation, Susanna. We are very happy to have you here, coming from St. Lucia and representing the member states of the OECS. This is quite exciting for us, and as Susanna presented, Think Blue, powered by Virtual Educa, is grounded not only in science, in economics, and in the overall development agenda, but more specifically on a very concrete project benefiting countries across the Caribbean and really has concrete outputs coming out of this for learning purposes. So we're very excited to continue this collaboration and moving forward with this. Briefly, before I introduce our next speaker, I want to also thank Madam Chair of Virtual Educa Foundation, Mrs. Marisol Espinosa. I apologize that I didn't say hello earlier, but I thank you for being here in our session. We really appreciate it, and for welcoming us here as well with Secretary General Jose Maria Anton. This is a wonderful opportunity for all of us. So welcome to our session on the blue economy. Okay, so continuing on, very briefly though, I want to make some parallels as well. The Caribbean Regional Oceanscape Project, and I know we have some colleagues here from South Africa as well. The CROP, it's also building not only national but regional marine spatial plan as well. And other regions are developing such plans as well, including our colleagues from South Africa, together with other countries. This is very exciting. And in terms of, for example, parallels with, say, Australia, the OECS has developed other products, such as a marine pollution report, understanding the importance of curbing marine pollution and managing solid waste to a great extent. And in the report, we make some parallels, for example, with the policies and the practices in Australia and in other regions. So the OECS has been very supportive and very active in developing the understanding of the blue economy and grounding this in analytical pieces. So